Good evening. Chairman of INSS Board of Directors for National Security Studies, Frank Louis. Executive Director of INSS, Professor Manuel Trachtenberg. The Director, Udi Dekel. Brigadier General, the Deputy, Professor Itamar Binovich. President of Tel Aviv University, Professor Poat, Ambassador of the United States in Israel, Tom Knights, and his wife Virginia. Good to have you over. The former minister and a member of the Board of Directors of INSS, Tzipi Livni. The former Chief of Staff and a senior fellow in INSS, my friend Gadi Eisencourt, dear researchers of INSS, dear respected guests. Anyone who has navigated throughout a cold night in a dangerous field knows that intuition could be something, that it might wrong you. If you only trust your luck and your gut, in most cases it won't take you far. You need to have a map in your mind. You need to have a goal. You need a compass to show you where you are compared to your destination. When we first started this government 7 months ago almost, our gut was that we have to stop the bleeding and save Israel from itself. And that was our guidance. Ever since, we've taken some major steps forward in order to stabilize that ship. We have passed the budget. We have shaken the dust from the activity of the ministries after a paralysis of several years. When it comes to foreign affairs, we have warmed up relationships that went cold, especially with the US of A, and also with our neighbors, and we've opened a new leaf, a new fresh leaf between Israel and the world. When it comes to security, everyday security, for now, we have brought some calm to the south, and we are constantly working to stop the deterioration in Judea and Samaria. Within Israel, we have stopped the political typhoon. The public arena now has to do more with civilians, with citizens, less with the leader, which is how things should be. Even the news are now shortened. Well, not greatly, but as I said, we have stabilized the ship. But in the Middle East, a calm sail is always very short-living. You have to read the map and make a decision, where do you steer the ship onwards. For that, we have to understand what is the goal, how we see the state of Israel in years to come. Israel now is 73 years and a half, and our journey forward starts with the question, what do we wish our state for its 80th birthday? Both former authorities of Israel have not, have not got to their 80th birthdays, as I say. And our duty is not only to cross 80 years, but also to bring Israel to that age when it is strong, prospering, calm, and sure of itself more than ever. So how do we do that? First of all, we need to read the map correctly. The Middle East is changing its face the whole time. New alliances come to life. Old alliances become irrelevant. And so the first rule we should have is flexibility, agility, buying friends, neutralizing enemies. The United States has been and will always be our best friend and ally. But Washington has their own interests and we have to frankly say they do not overlap our interests, and we speak very honestly and openly about it. We understand each other. The United States' interest in the Middle East is decreasing. Naturally, it is now looking forward to the Russia-Ukrainian border, but also even further into the long term, it has a strategic conflict, long years, with China. This is reality. There's no point in complaining. We have to work within those circumstances, not in the fanciful or wishful world. And this new reality is making us face challenges, but also creates opportunities. In the geopolitical arena, there's never a vacuum. There's never emptiness. If anything becomes empty, something else takes its place immediately. And the place of the United States in the arena might be filled by forces of terror and hatred, God forbid. But of course, if we will take the right steps, Israel could take that empty place. The infrastructure of friendship with our neighbors could become the beginning of a great friendship, and together we can better face the challenges we are faced by our enemies from around, those who stop our stability, try to shake our stability. And I always try to explain to our friends in the world that stability here has to do with people who wake up every morning with one goal: to stop the communists, to stop the stability, to create chaos and war. From Houthis in Yemen to the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Shia militias in Iraq, and so on. What all of those have in common is that they send a receipt at the end of every month to Tehran. The way I see our Iran as the beginning of the access of most of the threats on us, as the head of the octopus, I have presented here about 4 years ago. And even then, when I was the Minister of Defense, and now as Prime Minister of Israel, I am still seeing things that way, but even more so, and I have adapted it to reality. This move to make Iran weakened is on its way, and it is taking place in many different aspects when it comes to cyber, economy, nuclear, open and also discrete actions, solo and also in work with others in cooperation. But the basic principle is the same. Beirut or Gaza might send the rocket, but the address is always Tehran, and as weaker as Tehran gets, its arms are weaker. If the head of the octopus is hungrier, its arms, its tentacles are smaller. And so our borders, we will have enemies that are much weaker. This logic is absolutely screaming out loud, but relieving the sanctions and giving Tehran millions of dollars, those mean, friends, more rockets, more UAVs, more terror, more cyber attacks, more of everything, not only against us, by the way, but also against our US allies and our other allies. We follow the nuclear talks in Vienna, and when we know what we're talking about, we hope that it will end with no deal, because this deal is not good for Israel. But even with the agreement, we still believe that Iranians will continue to be Iranians. We see it as we speak throughout the negotiations, while the Iranian foreign ministries are sitting with the powers. At those moments, the police within Iran is behaving like a bully, attacking throughout those talks in the Emirates and in other places. This is exactly what we call negotiations under fire. This is just not working. If an agreement is signed and they're getting new dollars into the pockets, we all understand that Iranian aggressivity will only become stronger and stronger in the area. We in Israel are ready. We will still face them in every way possible. No agreement will tie our hands from acting for the benefit of security for the Israeli citizens. The Israeli strategy still stands, even if there is an agreement. Anyway, it will only buy us a very short time until it sunsets, or whether if there is no agreement. In both cases, our fight still continues. Which brings me to the greater question, friends. How do we sustain a prospering democratic state in a dangerous area that is unstable, in a world that does not have just one international police? What should we do in order to prepare Israel for the next decade and even farther than that? And the answer is economical growth and military growth. This you can see already in both decisions we've made as a government, not simple ones. First one is that we are managing this COVID crisis ever since I became Prime Minister without quarantines, without lockdowns, even if it is difficult. The paralysis of our economy is not an option. The second is that we have given a very great big budget, separate budget, for strengthening military forces, economic growth and military growth. This is our move. I want to explain that. Israel has to have a very strong economy. Israeli GNP has to become $1 trillion, which is possible. High-tech should be not 12% of the GNP, but double that. The economy has to stay open and functioning even through this pandemic decade we are living through. Democracy has to be stable, and the society has to be stable, and the level of the life has to rise, and the prices have to go down. A rich, prospering state could give a big part of its incomes to building power, to strengthen, because GNP also has to do with the size of population, but security is not linear with that. You can take lots of money and just pour it into empowerment, not to military bureaucracy, but to building abilities that open a huge gap between Israel and all the others. Because the stronger we are, the more deterrence we have, and the more deterrence we have, the smaller chance there is that we have to use that power, and the more time, quiet time, peaceful time we have, the more we can grow economically. It is a magic circle. It's a positive magic circle. Economic growth, strengthening, stability, more economic growth, and it's repeating. For that, we need to use our amazing technological abilities and manage wisely our resources. Today, for example, we have a terrorist in Khan Yunis putting up a rocket that he's created himself. It cost him a couple of hundreds of dollars, and he's shooting it to Israel. But the Iron Dome, on the contrary, costs thousands of dollars, dozens of thousands. And this does not make any sense because it allows terrorists to shoot more and more rockets. And we have to pay up millions to face every one of those, all of these rockets. This is not something that is sustainable. We have decided to stop this. And it will happen within only a few years. Within 1 year already, IDF has put into action a new laser system. First, just as an experiment, and then operationally, first only in South and then also in other places. And that will allow us to put a laser wall around Israel that will defend us from rockets, UAVs, drones and other threats. But in fact, it will negate, it will take away from the enemy the strongest card that they hold against us, which is this economic imbalance. It will go on, on its head. They will spend a lot of money. We will spend few dollars, because if we can just use an electric pulse to stop a rocket and it costs us only a few dollars, only a handful of dollars, we are actually taking away this firing that Iran has placed on our borders with a huge investment. All of this is not paying up anymore. This new generation of aerial defense will be able to allow us to help our friends in the geographical part of the world, that they are also exposed to threats from Iran and its friends and allies. And this is how we will create something useful. We will use what we have in order to give to the world, to get more support, more allies, and become stronger yet. We do it in so many fields, cyber, through technologies that assist fighting the global warming, all the way to COVID, following up new variants, dealing with this, we are always in the forefront, and daily I talk to different leaders from the world, also through WhatsApp, because we are all in the same boat. And today they come to us on a daily basis to discuss with us, to get our advice. And when we have such relationship, then you find yourself in a totally different place when you need them. The conflict with our neighbors that used to define almost every connection with the world, the Palestinian conflict is still there, but it's a lot less defining us. Israel is much stronger than just this conflict because we have a lot to give. In these coming years, Israel will be defined the way it will become for the next generation. I hold the responsibility, we hold it, to build a power that will prepare Israel in decades to come. Economy and safety and security. These days we put up the infrastructure for another leap forward economically. The last budget, in the law, we have set up a lot of regulation. We have encouraged competition in the market. We have put forward the ultra-Orthodox into the economy, into the labor market, by letting them not serve in the IDF, which no other ministry in Israel has done before. It's been my dream for a decade, and yesterday was the first call in the Knesset. It has been passed. Like a spring, the energy, the entrepreneurship, the power in the Israeli entities and in all of the citizens in Israel, Jews, Arabs, Orthodox, secular, this energy will leap forward, and the Israeli economy will just fly forward with less bureaucracy and more competition. And these days, we are taking steps forward for military empowerment after a few years of paralysis because we could not pass the budget. The budget was not passed because we have come to a gap in this empowerment. And we are not only closing it, but we are also empowering, more than that, running forward. So growth and empowerment and growth. Our enemies are busy in destruction, and we, God help, we are busy building the state of Israel. Thank you very much.